I got the idea to do this because I was seeing a lot of people on social media using tools like Codex and Claude Code to build websites. Now, what I don't know, based on what I'm seeing, is what platform, how those sites are being built. And so if somebody is brand new to software engineering or web development and using these tools for the first time, they may not even know. Is it a React app? Is it an Angular app? Is it vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Does it have a PHP framework like Laravel or Composer or something like that? I don't know. So that's what I don't know based on what I'm seeing. But what really stands out to me about people who are building websites for the first time is that they don't know how to troubleshoot the issues that they're having or how to fix the issues that they're having. And I can understand that because the more I learn about agentic AI workflows, the more I have come to realize that the results are directly related to the requirements. And if you don't understand requirements gathering or how to even ask for the thing that you want, which many inexperienced people or people new to development don't know how to do, then how do you get the result that you want if you don't even know what to ask for? So what I spent some time developing is something that I'm calling front-end audit. This is what I'm just calling an agentic workflow, a series of prompts to help you run an audit using an agent like Codex or Claude and to audit your website. Now, it's going to exclude things like a React app or an Angular app or a Vue app. So this is very much geared towards a more vanilla approach, but it doesn't need to be vanilla. Let's take a look here at the README. So this is a reusable agentic workflow for auditing websites built primarily with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, designed for use with coding agents like Codex or Claude. The workflow reviews a project's front end, produces individual audit reports, and finishes with a consolidated QA report. It does not modify the website being audited. So this is really important. The prompts in this workflow are set up specifically to not make changes until you've done the complete audit and you can see the results. So what are we going to audit today? This is a project that we built several months ago called Scenic. It's vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It has a blog layout. It has a page layout, and it has a contact page. And this is actually something that I designed myself back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I started my career as a WordPress developer, and I designed this thinking I would turn it into a WordPress theme. I never did. And then I found it a couple of months ago and I thought, gosh, I would actually like to build this. So we took a couple of weeks on the stream, on my live stream on YouTube, and we built this out. So this is a 4-page website, like I said, static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We're going to use the front end audit agentic workflow to audit this entire project, take a look at the results, take a look at the QA list. And here's the other thing that I think is really important about this audit. I really believe that it's important for human beings to be the final authority on what code is actually changed. So I designed this in a way where you can decide for yourself if that's something that you think should be changed. Maybe you see something that you disagree with, or that you were very intentionally doing a specific way, and the audit caught it for whatever reason and said, actually, it should not be this way. It should be completely different. So I just want to make sure that we are emphasizing that the human beings should always be the people reviewing the audits and making the decision about what does or doesn't get changed. You may see something on this audit that you don't agree with and that you're not going to change, and that is okay. That's how it should be, because we all know that AI doesn't always get it right. Sometimes AI is also very literal. It has a black and white view, a right and a wrong view, doesn't always take into consideration the nuance of why you might make a particular decision about how you build something. So I just want to throw that out there. There are going to be things in the audit where I'm like, actually, no, that was intentional. I had a reason for why I did that. So, and then also, I'll just be honest, it's pointing things out to me that I hadn't considered before, where I'm like, wow, I hadn't considered that before. I definitely need to do a little more research and see if that's something that I need to work on or do a little more research into, or quite frankly, change how I do development. Okay, so I have several projects here in Codex, and I'm just going to start a new project. And I'm going to call this the LinkedIn Front End Audit and QA. and I'm going to add folders. So this is my front end audit folder repository with all of my prompts. I'm going to add this. And then I'm going to add my project called Scenic. This is my local version of this static website called Scenic. So now I have both of my folders added here. Front end audit is the primary folder. Let's close this. And the first prompt is, it says to run the audit, add both this repository and the website you want to audit to your coding agent workspace, then use this prompt. So we're going to use the front end audit project to audit the website project I added to this workspace. Run all prompts in the front end audit prompts directory in order. And we can take a closer look at the prompts, but it basically says run all prompts. So we're not going to do one at a time. We're going to read them all in the prompts directory in order, starting with something called a project discovery. The project discovery, okay, I guess I am going to read a little bit of a prompt here. The project discovery basically says audit the entire project, do not modify any files, and produce a discovery report, an audit that outlines what the project even is. And that's important because we do need to be able to audit and make sure that the project itself is appropriate for the audit. Then follow the instructions in each prompt exactly. Do not modify the website project source code. Use the first prompt, prompt 00, to determine the project name and create the project specific folder under the output directory. And then write each audit report to that folder as instructed by the prompts. If project discovery determines that the project is out of scope for this audit, stop after the discovery report. So I'm going to copy this, go over here to Codex, and we'll go ahead and let this work. Okay, so while this is working, let's just quickly look at some of the prompts so you get an idea of what we're looking at here. So because I tend to build static websites where it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the top 3 things that I wanted to audit are HTML, CSS, JavaScript. The next 2 things were accessibility and then search engine optimization. So I am a software engineer, but I've primarily worked in web development and marketing for the majority of my career. I've done a lot of freelancing and consulting. The freelancing projects I took on were always to build websites, to do lead generation, and to help people run their businesses, market their businesses, capture leads. So a lot of my career has been very SEO focused. I am not an SEO expert. This prompt does not do SEO keyword research, nothing like that. It is a very organic SEO approach. In my opinion and in my experience, the SEO work that a lot of SEO specialists do needs to work in harmony with a strong organic SEO focused website. What do I mean by that? Good HTML5 elements, good template hierarchy, good markup, good JavaScript. You need to have a good SEO focused website first before those other things can work. In my opinion, there are maybe people out there who disagree with me, but being on the development side of this, nothing beats a website that just has a strong foundation of good markup, good semantic best practices. I didn't start to really learn about accessibility until I was several years into my career, and accessibility and SEO very much work hand in hand. They go together. They're like siblings. Oftentimes, if you structurally have good organic SEO, you are well on your way to also having good accessibility. However, that doesn't cover all of your bases for accessibility. Now, accessibility is also a huge, complex part of web development. And I didn't want this to be an accessibility audit that does a deep dive into every edge case, because I think that could happen. So I wanted to focus on something called the WebAIM Million. And if you're not familiar with that, the WebAIM Million is a project where this organization, WebAIM, does an audit of the top accessibility issues of the home pages of the top 1 million websites. They started doing this in 2019, and every year it's pretty much the same. These are the top issues that they find, accessibility problems they find: low contrast text, missing alt text, so missing alt text on images, missing labels on forms, Empty links. So think of a link where it's like an icon. You should have some sort of screen reader friendly text, or at the very least an ARIA label. I think it's better to have screen reader friendly text. So empty links, empty buttons, same, and a missing language attribute in the HTML. So I specifically designed the prompt to start with these criteria. This isn't the only thing that the accessibility prompt looks for, but I wanted this to be the focus just to keep the scope from getting too crazy. So the sixth prompt is a final report where we sort of condense all of these things into one report. And then the final prompt is a QA list where you could go through that list of things that it finds, and one by one you could ask your agent to go in, and that's when you would change your code. You could either do it yourself, or you could ask your agent to help you do those things or make suggestions for how those things could be improved. Whatever you want to do, I just wanted it to be a QA list. So this completed all 8 audit prompts in order. The project discovery identified Scenic as in scope. We have a project discovery report, a final audit report, and a QA list. There are also reports for each individual prompt. The website source was not modified. The leading finding is a shared JavaScript initializer that throws on the leading finding is a shared JavaScript initializer that throws on 3 of the 4 pages, which probably means I did not write a conditional. How much you want to bet it has to do with the contact page, that I didn't write a conditional. So it's been really good for me too to remember that I have to go back and fix some of my own things. All right, so here is our output. So let's take a look at the project discovery first. The project name is Scenic. It created an output directory. Audit suitability, it's in scope. Front-end summary, the site consists of 4 hand-authored static documents, a root homepage plus a blog, contact, and generic page documents in subdirectories. Every page loads the same root level style sheets and deferred JavaScript using relative URLs. Pages are served as is. There is no templating, generation, bundling, package manager, or build step. Header, navigation, newsletter, social. And footer markup is duplicated across documents rather than produced from shared includes. And these are the 4 pages. Here's, we are using style.css. That's where all the CSS is written. Normalize and animate, because we do have some animations. Inline styles in the HTML, notably newsletter, honeypot positioning. Yeah, this is a project where I was trying to implement a MailChimp subscription. And MailChimp is a little bit, I had some trouble with that, the implementation. I don't remember all the details, but I do kind of remember saying, yeah, I'm not going to proceed with this. JavaScript source, script.js, the only authored browser script loaded with defer on all 4 pages. Build and tooling, there is no package.json. Third-party dependencies. CSS, we have normalize, fonts, Open Sans is loaded from Google Fonts, form services, the newsletter post to MailChimp, and the contact form post to FormSpree. I love FormSpree because I can build the forms myself, go over to FormSpree and just grab an endpoint. Content, services, photographs are credited to Unsplash. Social sharing endpoints are constructed by script.js. This is also a project where we built, let's get over to the blog, where we built social sharing links without needing an API. Audit exclusion. So it excludes Git or .vs code, basically excludes anything that's in the git ignore file. There are no dependency directories, compiled bundles, or generated build outputs. Important caveats. Okay, shared page Chrome is duplicated, so repeated findings may reflect all 4 HTML files, and line numbers can differ. Relative asset and navigation paths differ between the root and nested pages. That's by design. Several behaviors are conditional on page-specific elements. JavaScript must be evaluated on every page, not only the home page. I think that is something that I overlooked. Source inspection can confirm markup and deterministic script issues, but responsive behavior, focus management, contrast over images, animation, form service behavior, and pop-up share behavior still require browser or assistive technology verification. So this is the project discovery, and each prompt says, make sure you read the project discovery before you do the next prompt. So here's our HTML audit, and we're not going to go through every single audit. I'll show you an example of one audit. The 4 documents have complete document shells, useful landmarks, native controls, lists for navigation, and generally coherent headings. The main defects are repeated placeholder links. That's my fault because sometimes I forget to update those. Duplicate IDs on the contact page. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize I had duplicate IDs on the contact page. An unhelpful blog image, an unhelpful blog image alternative. That's probably because I forgot to update alt text. See what I mean about needing a QA for my own projects? This is going to be really helpful. And a homepage section whose heading hierarchy starts at H3. So findings, 0 high priority, 2 medium priority, 3 low, 1 informational. So the first finding, placeholder links do not provide real navigation. So this is probably because I put in hashtags and I forgot to put in the actual links after I built the homepage. The homepage call to action and all 5 footer social links on every page use href with a hashtag. That's something I overlooked. Activating them returns user, yeah, it just refreshes the page. So we would need to put in actual links. Got it. So next finding, contact page repeats the form control IDs. Severity medium, confidence high. Let's actually, should we take a look at the contact page? Let's see here. So here is our contact page. Contact page repeats form control IDs. Okay, let's just, so there's name, email, message. Oh, yeah, this is the, so here we have the form spree form. We've got ID for name, email, and message. And then this is the newsletter form. We also have an ID for name, and email right here. So, okay. Yeah, we would definitely want to fix this. This is the MailChimp form. Okay, that's a good catch. I didn't realize that I had done that. I also kind of abandoned the newsletter sign up because I couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to. And of course, I made a mental note to go back and revisit that. I didn't. So this is a really good catch. Yeah, got it. That makes sense now. Okay. Both the contact form and newsletter form use ID name and ID email. The newsletter labels for 4 values therefore resolve to the first controls with those IDs, not reliably to their adjacent newsletter inputs. Okay, that's a good one. Do you see what I mean here about this? This is good stuff. Finding homepage card headings lack an identifying section heading. Problem. The card grid is a generic div containing 6 article elements whose titles begin at H3, but the grid has no H2 or other section heading that explains the collection. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're right. I didn't have that in the design, so I didn't include it when I actually built it. Yeah, that would probably be a good thing to include here. And then it's a div, so we could change that to a section because sections require a heading. So we could change this to a section and we could add like an H2 because these are all H3s, articles with H3s. So that's good. That would be a good change to make. I would agree with that. Mark the collection as a section with a meaningful H2. Yeah, and visually hidden if the design does not call for a visible label, then retain H3 card titles or use H2s for the cards if no group heading is appropriate. I actually really like the first suggestion, which is I personally would be fine modifying the design to include an H2. I would actually put in an H2 and even allow room for a description, just like a one line in paragraph tags. I think that would be just fine. But of course, if you had a design, you could just visually hide it with some screen reader friendly CSS or omit it altogether and add H2s to the card, change the H3s to H2s. I like the first recommendation. I would definitely do that. Severity low, confidence high. Got it. Okay, next. Logo markup changes semantic level between pages. The site logo is the homepage H1, but becomes a generic div on inner pages, while the inner pages correctly provide content H1 elements. Duplicating the same visual component with different element types makes shared markup harder to maintain. Okay, so this is interesting. It's what it's pointing out here is not wrong. Here's what it's pointing out. On the home page, the site title is essentially the logo, and it's an H1 because when a screen reader hits that page, I want it to know exactly what this is. It's an H1, it's the site title, it's also the logo. So if we're actually looking at that, it's this right here on the home page. But on inner pages, I changed that H1 to a div, and I very specifically have a page title that's an H1, an H1. And so what the audit is pointing out is that that can be difficult to maintain, and I don't disagree with that, but that doesn't mean that it's the wrong approach. I personally think that it's a good approach. It's the approach that I used at the University of St. Thomas. I was the manager of front-end development there for, well, I was there for 7 years. For the last 3 years, I was the manager of front-end development. That was how we structured our sites, and it worked very, very well. So yes, it in theory could be difficult to maintain, but it is a good overall strategy to have your site title or logo be your H1 on the home page. And then on inner pages, that can be a div, and you can have your page title be the H1. That is still a good strategy, but I appreciate that this is pointing this out as something that could be difficult to maintain. That's fair. And also, this is a great example of why humans need to be the final authority. Just because the audit points something out doesn't mean that it wasn't strategically implemented. So keep that in mind. Here we go. Okay, so then the end of every audit is going to have a list of positive findings. So every page has a doc type, a language, a char set, a viewport, a title, and one main landmark. Navigation uses native anchors in lists, while menu, print, and submit actions use native buttons with explicit types where needed. Visible form controls have native label associations apart from the contact page duplicate ID, which we know we have to fix, and relevant input types and autocomplete values are used because Chrome will yell at you in the DevTools if you're building forms and you don't put in an autocomplete attribute. So if you build forms and you look in DevTools in Chrome, Chrome will mark that as an error in the DevTools if you don't fix that. So, and it's easy to include. Images consistently include alt attributes, and figure image markup is structurally valid. So this is an example of what an audit would look like. So let's go look now at the final report. Okay, so this is the final, we're going to look now at the final report, and then we'll look at the QA list and we'll ask Codex to fix some of the things on the QA list, because why not? Okay, executive summary. Scenic is fundamentally sound, small static site with clear native markup, restrained CSS, and lightweight JavaScript. Its largest immediate risk is a deterministic JavaScript exception on 3 pages. Accessibility and release quality also depend on correcting duplicate form IDs, menu focus behavior, placeholder links, focus visibility, motion preferences, and copied social metadata. This report consolidates 1 high, 7 medium, 4 low, and 2 informational findings. Browser, keyboard, assistive technology, responsive, and deployment checks are still required. Project architecture, 4 hand-authored HTML documents. The simplicity makes defects easy to isolate, but duplicated Chrome increases the breadth and maintenance cost of fixes. Generated vendor assets were excluded. Findings target editable HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What the project does well: static crawlable documents expose important content and navigation without JavaScript rendering. Pages have complete document shells, language declarations, main landmarks, lists for navigation, and native buttons and forms. CSS uses short selectors, custom properties, modern grid flexbox, responsive image rules, and no important or ID styling. JavaScript is small, dependency-free, event-driven, and avoids unsafe HTML injection. Icon controls and links generally have accessible names, and all images include alt attributes. Priority findings. So finding shared social initializer crashes on 3 pages. Oh, interesting. So this is the high one. Okay, we're gonna fix that. Problem: sharing icons. I didn't add a conditional to make sure that this was on the other pages. So that we'll fix that. Runs on all pages, but dereferences sharing anchors that exist only on the blog page. Impact: the home page, contact page, and generic page end startup with an uncut type error. Okay, so we have to do some scoping. Finding: duplicate contact page IDs break label targets. We know about that. Mobile navigation loses focus continuity. The menu neither moves focus on open nor restores it on closed. CSS hides the open trigger while it may still hold focus. Finding: placeholder links publish false actions. Okay. The homepage call to action and 5 footer social links don't have appropriate links. They have a hashtag because I never went back and filled them in. Okay. Finding: keyboard link focus can become visually indistinct. The problem: the shared focus rule makes link underlines transparent. Yeah, this is another thing that came up. I tend to use link underlines to signify something's a link, and then my focus hover active state makes the underline transparent. That's visually what I do. And this is saying here, the shared focus rule makes link underlines transparent, does not add in an explicit persistent focus indicator. Well, the reason for that is that I leave the outline intact, the browser default outline. So let's take a look at that. We can see what that is. And I think that's okay. So if I'm on this page, I'll zoom in here. You can see there that the browser has a blue outline. So I'm not changing the default browser behavior. I'm adding a focus state, which is also the same as the hover and the active state. So I appreciate that this is calling this out, but there is an outline for keyboard users. And it says here, keyboard users may not be able to locate the focused link reliably across browsers and backgrounds. I mean, I think that it can, because I'm not changing the default browser behavior for focus states. So I appreciate that this is calling this out. Like I said, do with this information whatever you want. This is, in my opinion, this is okay. Finding: motion preference is ignored. Yeah, this has been called out a lot too, which is that we should be using a media query called prefers reduced motion reduce. And that's because we are using animations and keyframes. I'm using animate.css, which is a CSS, it's a CSS, I guess, library to add some animations. So you could see there that there's some animations. We also have some zooming. And it's told me so far on every single audit to add a media query for prefers reduced motion reduce. So I think that that's good. I think that that's helpful. Okay, so here's another finding. Page metadata is copied and points to example.com. And that's because I did not finish. Where's our Scenic? That's because here's our contact page. Yeah, I didn't update the title or the description for the inner pages. So again, that's on me. I went to all the trouble of adding Open Graph meta tags. Here we are on the contact page, but it clearly was copied over from home. So this is like, hey, this is obviously an SEO problem. You need to finish filling these out. These need to be updated before this ever goes into production. Finding: form initializer silently targets only the first form. Yeah, that's a good point, because we have 2 forms on the contact page. So that's also another very good point. Okay, we have another finding here. The blog image has placeholder alternative text. So I never went back and filled in the alt text for that image. Finding: repeated navigation has no skip link. Yeah, that's something I have started doing on the last couple of projects, which is make sure that I have a skip link so we can skip over the navigation. And I hadn't been doing that on earlier projects. So that's something I've recently implemented, and it didn't get implemented on Scenic. So that's a good thing to point out. Finding: this is pretty long, so we're not going to do all of these, but I think they're interesting enough to at least look at the first few here. Homepage article heading relationship is unclear. An unlabeled article grid starts at H3 after the hero's H2. Impact: heading navigation and machine interpretation imply an unclear relationship between the hero and the article collection. And that's probably because we're using a lot of lorem ipsum. I don't have an H2 on this section, which is technically a div. So that's a good, so hopefully you get an idea of what it is that it's calling out here. Let's see here. Finding. Share parameters are not encoded as parameter values. So the URLs are not encoded for the share buttons. Okay. Responsive layout needs browser verification. Severity is informational, so low confidence. Fixed height inner heroes, aspect ratio content regions, parallax long headlines, and translucent overlays cannot be fully assessed from source. Impact. Small landscapes and high zoom may reveal clipping, overlap, contrast, or excessive spacing issues. So where are we now? We're at 175. We should be able to zoom into 400 with the layout not breaking. So it's informational. It's not saying that it's a problem, but if we zoom into 400, we can see that nothing is clipping. Everything is well within the boundaries. We're not breaking the layout. So we have that going for us. Again, informational. Finding. Production indexing policy requires deployment verification. So no roadmap, sitemap, canonical links, redirect, or host configuration is represented in the repository, right? Because it's, well, technically it is deployed, but it's right. I didn't implement any of these things because it's not a real production website. So yeah, so like I said, this is good that this tags this as informational. It's a good QA list. Let's take a look at the actual QA list. We're getting near our time here, and let's see if we can actually have it fix some of these things. So what do we have here? Fix before launch. So we've got fix before launch, verify manually, and optional cleanup. So let's do some fix before launch tasks. Guard and scope the sharing initializer so it does not throw on pages without social sharing. Here's the sharing icons. I did not scope this. That is a mistake. That is my mistake. This is going to scope it to make sure that it's only running on the pages that have sharing icons, which is only one page. I'm going to copy this and we'll go back to Codex. And I'm going to say, please fix this QA item from the 07 QA to-do.md report. I'll update only the sharing initializer in Scenic script.js, then run a lightweight syntax and behavior check to confirm non-blog pages no longer throw. Fixed. So let's take a look. Where are we here? There it is. It just puts in a nice little guard statement. That's all we needed. Nice. Let's do another one. Give contact and newsletter inputs unique IDs and update their labels. So we'll mark this as done. I'm sure you could do all of these at once, or you could do them one at a time, right? Please fix this QA item. I'm doing them one at a time because I get a little nervous when I ask Codex to make giant sweeping changes. I find that I need to ease into things and see things being done correctly a few at a time. That's just how I like to work. So our contact page changed. We can see here that it updated the for and the ID, and it updated it for an ID here too, made those unique. Excellent. I think that this is working really, really well. Let's do one more. And then I have some final thoughts before we wrap this up. Well, I wouldn't want to have it replace these hrefs because it doesn't know what they are. That's something I need to do. Move focus into the mobile menu when opened and restore it to the trigger when closed by button or escape. Okay, so let's see what behavior it's actually talking about. So focus, open. And then you can also escape to close. So what does it say here? Move focus into the mobile menu when opened and restore it to the trigger when closed by button or escape. Okay, so I think what it's saying here is, so if we're inside the navigation and then I hit escape to close, and if I tab again, it's the focus is not naturally coming back to the button, and it should. Okay, so let's have it fix that. And so let's just take a look at what that JavaScript even looks like. So here's our menu toggle, where we're toggling menu active on the body. We're toggling our aria expanded for when it's open and closed. Here's our escape. So the escape key, really what it does is it checks to see if the body class has that menu active. If it does, it removes it and it toggles the aria expanded to false. So it's not doing anything to return the focus back to the button, which is what Codex says we need to do. So let's have it fix that. And we'll see what that JavaScript looks like. Please fix this QA item. Opening the menu focuses its close button. Closing via the button restores focus to the open trigger. Closing via escape also restores trigger focus. Aria expanded remains synchronized with menu state, JavaScript syntax, and diff checks pass. So let's see. So it added close focus. So we have a close button defined up here. So it added a closed. And this is why we put specific classes on the buttons. So every button has, I think, a class of menu button, but also every button has open button and menu and close button. Good. So close focus, and then close add event listener, close menu, which is this, which is open focus. Nice, simple. I like it. And then the escape toggle just calls the close menu function. Beautiful. I love it. So simple, not complicated at all. I have some thoughts about the people, this mostly, well, I only stream on YouTube, but I do get a fair number of people in my comment section being very critical of AI coding tools and AI slop. And here's my thoughts on this. I'm just going to wrap this up with these few thoughts. If you think that there wasn't code slop on the internet prior to AI, you never spent hours of your life on Stack Overflow, desperately looking for a solution to your problem. Finding something that worked, not understanding it, knowing it was probably garbage, and being too pressed for time to fully learn it, understand it, and just needing to push it and move on with your life. I fully believe that the results that we get from AI are entirely dependent on the requirements that we're writing. I don't know how people who don't write code do this. I think you have to have some basic knowledge of writing code in order to understand what AI is giving you. That being said, I would be lying to you if I told you that every single thing I've ever pushed to a production environment, I 100% understood. I absolutely didn't. Most of it, yes, not all of it. It's just not how it works. You do have to understand some things, but if you are writing good requirements, you understand most of what it's doing. It's not all AI slop. It's just not. It can do really, really good work, but it depends on the humans who are doing the work. So I hope that made sense.